General Hospital spoilers for Wednesday, June 11th tease that Nina is on a stormy journey, as everything she's tried to protect begins to crumble layer by layer under the weight of truth and betrayal. Her already struggling life is thrown into a new spiral, as evidence of her affair with Drew is finally confirmed. What was once a rumor, a shadow that quietly lurked behind suspicious glances, has now become an undeniable truth, a truth that haunts Nina every minute, every hour, with consequences that not only affect her personal life but also destroy what's left of her legal, moral, and familial role. It's not just the price of weakness, but also a sign that every strategic adjustment she and Rick have planned must be immediately reconsidered. The incident is not simply a sexual scandal, but a trigger for a larger crisis, where Nina is no longer the mother trying to protect her daughter, but is now seen as the hypocrite, the one behind a series of hurtful moves in the custody battle. She and Rick, who once stood side by side in building a strong and righteous image in court, are now forced to face the harsh reality that the old strategy is no longer working. Because everything has changed. All eyes have turned. Any sympathy they once had is melting into anger, especially from those who were on their side like Willow, Carly, and Jason. Evidence that seemed like mere threats is now confirmed, causing the court to begin to question Nina's objectivity, ethics, and even the true motives behind her actions throughout the case. Rick, with his keen political and legal instincts, realized that if he did not change his plans immediately, not only would Nina lose everything, but he would also be drawn into a quagmire with no way out. The first steps of a new strategy began to take shape, but this time, it was no longer based on a clean image, no longer on moral arguments, but on a fight for survival, where the stronger, the more calculating, would survive. Nina was forced to abandon what had once been her anchor, the image of a loving mother, a wounded and isolated woman. Now, she had to learn to fight like the hunted, ready to strike first, counterattack later, and sacrifice whatever was necessary to regain control. The real battle begins, no longer a soft custody battle, but a full-blown legal and media battle, where Nina must contend not only with Michael, Willow, Carly, and Jason, but also with a skeptical public and a legal system that is beginning to turn its back on her. Her every move is now being watched, her every word analyzed, and her every action potentially incriminating. The tide of battle is not only driven by her exposure, but also by a loss of trust within her own ranks, where Rick is forced to choose between protecting his allies and protecting his reputation. And as Nina struggles to hold on to what she has left, she herself begins to realize that this fight is no longer about protecting others, it's about survival. There's no turning back. The price of betrayal, the price of weakness, the price of keeping secrets are now clearly visible before her eyes, and she must choose between bitter surrender or entering a new battlefield, where everything will be fiercer, more cruel, and there will be no room for forgiveness. Trina and Kai are growing closer as their shared trauma, pain, and anger begin to connect them beyond all boundaries. In quiet moments amid the chaos, they begin to find a deeper connection, not through empty words of comfort, but through knowing glances and meaningful silences. The story between Trina and Kai is more than just the interaction between two angry young people, but is developing into a powerful undercurrent, a smoldering fire waiting to erupt. They are not just thinking together, they are secretly plotting, a revenge plot with terrifying precision, aimed squarely at Drew, who they believe is responsible for the injustice and destruction in the lives of those they love. Each time Trina and Kai meet, another piece of their past is peeled back, a new darkness revealed. Drew, in their eyes, is no longer the successful man who once stood on the sidelines of major battles, but a symbol of manipulation, deceit, and destruction. His actions, from exploiting Willow's trust, betraying Michael, manipulating Nina, to using his influence to manipulate the legal system, are now living proof of how far one can use power to bury morality and truth. Trina and Kai no longer believe in conventional justice. Having seen for themselves how justice can be bought, manipulated, or silenced in the face of evil if the perpetrators know how to hide it. The new dynamic in Trina and Kai's relationship is one of increasing intensity. Gone are the cold nods and shyness of their first encounters, now they are direct, fierce, and bold. They share data, Track schedules, study Drew's relationship weaknesses and social influence. They are not fools seeking blind justice. They are warriors gathering their weapons, gathering their strategies, and preparing to strike. The scary thing is, they are smart, they have a reason, and they have nothing to lose. It is their loss and desperation that makes their plans no longer bound by conventional morality, because morality has long since died in this war. Kai, once reserved, is now the one who maps out Drew's strategy, analyzing every legal and public weakness. Trina, with her access to the inner network, to the secrets that have never been made public, is the key link that holds the pieces together. Every day they get closer to an irreversible act. And madness begins to creep in. Not because what they are planning could destroy a person, but because they are willing to accept any consequences. When people lose faith in the system, when they no longer fear legal or public repercussions, that's when they become real threats. This revenge is no longer emotional. It's a campaign, with goals, with tactics, with a roadmap. And the first goal is to make Drew lose what he holds most dear, his power and prestige, without the need for guns or blood. Trina and Kai understand that true power lies in the destruction of an image, and they're preparing to do it, step by step. Videos, text messages, financial documents, and affairs that Drew thought were buried, all are being resurrected, carefully arranged for the day they'll be exposed. It's not just personal revenge now, it's a whirlwind that's tearing away the facades of lies in Drew's world. And the most dangerous thing is, Trina and Kai are not afraid. They don't seek recognition. They don't seek praise. They just want the truth exposed, and if that leads to Drew's downfall, then so be it. But when the truth explodes, when every dark corner is exposed, who will be able to control the rage? And will Trina and Kai be able to hold their own in the midst of a war they themselves started, or will they be consumed by the fire they themselves started? The answer is coming, and it's going to go further than anyone could have imagined. Felicia has officially accepted a completely new assignment, opening a chapter of unprecedented turmoil and change in the complex picture of Port Charles. This is not simply a small change or a temporary adjustment, but a profound turning point, marking the beginning of a new chain of events that will shake up every relationship, every calculation, and even the hidden forces that are manipulating behind the scenes. The story of this assignment is not only about Felicia taking on a new role, but also closely related to a series of consecutive changes. A series of closely linked events and decisions that create an overall picture full of drama and unpredictability. In this context, Felicia not only faces the daily challenges of work but also has to enter a relentless battle with new conspiracies and calculations that are sophisticated and dangerous. The new explosion triggered by this mission is not simply a change in the role of an individual, but a manifestation of a widespread upheaval that affects the entire system of power and social structure in the city. Things are going much further than initially expected. As old relationships are disrupted, alliances are re-established, and new calculations appear in every corner. This further proves that the mission Felicia has taken on is not just a personal transformation, but also a key link in a long-term, calculated and tactical strategy. The constant adjustments in plans, the constant changes in approaches to problems have created an atmosphere of tension and instability, forcing all involved to constantly adapt and take appropriate steps so as not to fall behind. These new calculations not only affect the course of the case but also create a series of complex consequences, from personal clashes to high-level power conflicts. During the course of the mission, Felicia is forced to face unprecedented situations, carefully hidden secrets and silent forces ready to fight against anyone who dares to touch their interests. Every step, every decision can become a turning point, leading to unpredictable chain reactions, opening up new dramatic and dangerous scenes. It is this explosion that completely changes the situation, turning Felicia's personal mission into a battle for survival, where she must not only fight for justice but also fight to preserve the existence of herself and her loved ones. Things are changing rapidly, and there is no sign that stability will return soon. This change forces all involved to reconsider their positions, motives, and plans in a game of calculation and risk. In this context, Felicia's role becomes more important than ever, not only as a taskmaster but also at the center of a new series of events that continue to expand, complicate the story and make every calculation more carefully considered than ever. And in the midst of this chaos, one thing is certain, everything is just beginning. And the next steps will determine the future not only of Felicia, but of many others in this tumultuous city. The news Michael revealed has left Carly, Sunny, and Jason in a state of utter shock, an unexpected shock, a long-hidden truth suddenly revealed in the most chaotic moment, Daisy. The child everyone believed to be Sasha's daughter with an unknown man, is actually Michael Corinthos' biological child. This truth not only shocks the Corinthos family, but also pushes the entire current situation into a state of explosive spiraling out of control. What was once a vague suspicion has now become the central piece in a series of domino reactions, causing each individual involved to face an unprecedented wave of psychological, legal, and familial consequences. For Carly, this revelation is not only a stab in the heart, but also a cruel reminder that her son, whom she once thought was mature, rational, and in control, is in fact living in a maze of wrong, sneaky, and dangerous decisions. She feels deeply betrayed not only because Michael has kept such a big secret from her, but also because Daisy's very existence, an innocent child caught in the middle of a storm without knowing it, has become a target, a vulnerable point. And Sunny, fiercely protective of his family, immediately senses the looming threat not only from outside forces, but also from enemies in the shadows who could use Daisy as a bargaining chip against his family. Sunny's anger is not loud, but more dangerous is the silence accompanied by a cold gaze, a sign that a counterattack is about to be launched. Jason, who always acted more rationally than emotionally, immediately went into strategic mode. He didn't need to hear more details to know that Daisy's true identity would mean that every measure of safety around her, and Sasha, had been blown away. He understood the implications of a leak amid Michael's personal and legal troubles. Jason immediately ordered a full review of Daisy's birth records, a threat level check from rival organizations, and a special protective ring for both Sasha and the child. He knew that in Michael's world, fatherhood was more than an emotional obligation, it was a deadly bond if used by the right enemy. Daisy's truth was more than a shock. It was a spreading obsession that was slowly destroying what remained of the Corinthos family's fragile trust, solidarity, and sense of security. It proves that everything they've planned, from custody of Wiley and Amelia to the plan to protect the family legacy, needs to be seriously revised. This explosion of information isn't a sideshow. It's a time bomb that could blow everything apart if left unchecked. Carly knows it. Sunny feels it. Jason understands it. And they all realize that if they don't act now, it won't just be Sasha and Daisy who will be hurt, it could be the entire Corinthos family dragged into an irreversible war. Sasha, meanwhile, is on the verge of collapse as she realizes the truth has been revealed. All these years, she's kept this secret not to hide from Michael, but to protect her daughter from a dangerous world where identity can be weaponized, where blood doesn't mean safety. But now that the truth has been pulled out, she has no choice but to trust Carly. Sunny and Jason, the only people with the ability and power to keep Daisy alive, but can they do it while hostile forces like Victor, Rick, and even Drew are silently watching and waiting for the right moment to strike? The story is not just about who is Daisy's father. It's about who will protect Daisy from the hands that are reaching out. Who will control the rage of powerful men when they learn that another child in their family is being used for politics, media, and revenge? And will Michael, who once thought he could keep this secret forever, have the strength to endure the seismic shock he has created? Every action from now on will no longer be simple. Every decision will have consequences that will last for years, even generations. In a moment that seemed like a family affair, now at the center of a storm that threatens to tear apart a fragile system of alliances, Sasha and Daisy's lives become a symbol of something much larger, faith, redemption, and the delicate line between love and destruction. Carly, Sunny, and Jason know there is no time to hesitate. A plan of action is being drawn up, layers of defense are being built. And a silent declaration is being made in the minds of all three: anyone who dares to touch Daisy, Michael's daughter, Carly's granddaughter, the innocent child whose fate was not yet decided, will pay a price. And this time, the price will be so high that no one will dare play with fire again. Isaiah becomes increasingly aware of the depth of Portia's suffering, as he watches her thoughts and actions change day by day under the terrible pressure of the forces around her. Portia, who was once a strong, determined woman with a clear mind, is now at a confusing crossroads, having to reconsider all her previous calculations. A large part of the reason for Portia's change is the subtle and persistent influence of Tracy, who is not only urging but also skillfully manipulating Portia's emotions and arguments, forcing her to side with Drew, the person she once trusted and attached to. Tracy's influence is not just simple advice but a carefully constructed strategic tactic. Taking advantage of every weak point in Portia's psychology, doubts, worries about the family's future, work pressure, and unhealed wounds from the past. By planting deep doubts in Portia's mind about Drew's motives and actions, Tracy gradually makes it impossible for Portia to maintain a neutral or conciliatory stance. She is caught in a dilemma. As someone who wants to preserve peace but is pulled toward power struggles that she cannot refuse. Furthermore, Portia feels increasingly isolated as those close to her who once supported her seem to begin to doubt her, or even advise her to choose a clear side in the increasingly fierce confrontation. She is faced with difficult choices not only in terms of work but also related to ethics and honesty with herself. The internal conflict makes her increasingly tired, stressed, and sometimes in a state of confusion that is almost disorienting. Every decision now carries the burden of trade-offs, making Portia no longer the person Isaiah once knew, a resilient, understanding woman who knows what she needs. Meanwhile, Tracy, with her deep understanding of people and power relationships, continues to exert subtle pressure to push Portia into the center of the new war she is secretly controlling. She does not stop at inciting suspicion but also takes advantage of legal loopholes and complex relationships to gain advantages for herself. The change in Portia's behavior and thinking makes the situation more confusing and unpredictable, as she gradually becomes a character torn between two factions, with no clarity or safety. Isaiah, with his sharp intuition and understanding, clearly feels the seriousness of the problem that he witnessed Portia's inner turmoil and understood that without timely help, she could easily spiral out of control. He saw the fierce struggle in her eyes, wanting to maintain faith in herself and those around her, while being overwhelmed by anxiety and pressure that easily swayed her. This situation not only harmed Portia mentally, but also directly affected her ability to make sound decisions in the ongoing legal battle. The story of Portia's adjustment in thinking and planning was not only a sign of a personal change but also a reflection of a major shift in the entire situation around her. When someone as important as Portia lost balance, relationships, alliances, and strategic plans began to falter. The adjustments Portia must make not only affect herself but also cause a chain reaction from the parties involved, making the situation more complicated and difficult to control than ever. It is in this situation that Portia is pushed into a state of new madness, a state of tension, conflict that almost makes her lose control of her life. Her mind is disturbed by Tracy's urgings, doubts about Drew, and the fear of loss that she cannot avoid. This further increases the chaos in her personal and professional relationships, making her vulnerable to isolation, disorientation, and possibly leading to bad decisions at the most crucial moment. Isaiah stands by Portia, both as a friend, colleague, and spiritual support, trying to help her stay confident and sane in the surrounding mental storm. But he also understands that this chaos cannot be resolved with simple words or encouragement. It requires timely intervention, new strategies, and close cooperation between the parties involved to help Portia overcome this crazy situation before things become irreversible. And above all, Isaiah secretly hopes that Portia will find herself again, the resilient, strong, and wise woman he once admired, so that she can continue to fight for what is right and protect the people she loves. Sasha is now facing one of the biggest pressures of her life, a change she could not have expected, and increasingly feels like she is being forced into a trap with no way out. The new pressures she faces come not only from the custody battle but also from the strategic adjustments that the forces around her are forcing on her, making her already chaotic life increasingly unmanageable. This new adjustment, which she cannot avoid, not only involves changes in her personal relationships but also directly affects the control of her life. The power she once thought was hers is now held by the players in the shadows. Since learning the truth about Daisy's identity, Sasha has not only been overwhelmed by accusations and criticism but also has to face uncertainty about everything around her. The truth about Drew, betrayal, and hidden alliances that she never knew about are gradually revealed. Especially when big forces, like Tracy, begin to manipulate and control the decisions related to her, making everything more complicated and unpredictable. Sasha realizes that not only is the custody battle looming over her, but also the forces that are secretly manipulating her future, making it impossible for her to continue living in the safety she once thought she had. This pressure comes not only from the outside, but also from the obsessions that Sasha is experiencing. She not only has to face the fear of losing her child, but also the fear that everything she has built is gradually collapsing. Every day, she has to get used to a life where every decision has unpredictable consequences, and every step is a stressful calculation. Unexpected calls from lawyers, meetings with witnesses, or tense confrontations with Michael make her unable to think about anything but the survival of her family, and the safety of Daisy. Sasha becomes increasingly aware that she is being placed in a crazy situation from which she cannot escape. She feels caught between two irreconcilable forces. On one side are her loved ones, who are always on her side and want to protect her, and on the other side are powerful forces, always ready to corner her and force her to do their will. She is not only caught in the middle of a family war, but also a pawn in a power game that others are playing. This only deepens her obsession, and she begins to feel the danger not only from the outside but also from the very people she once trusted. The explosion of these changes, especially the power adjustments that are being made in a covert and subtle way, causes Sasha to lose more and more control over her life. From a resilient woman who stood firm in the face of adversity, she is now gradually becoming someone who has to live in the calculations of others. This new adjustment has made her no longer the one who controls her life but a character led by great forces according to a plan she is not aware of. This is not only a shock to Sasha, but also a painful awakening of what she has been facing. The deeper she gets into the decisions she is forced to make, the more it becomes clear that this explosion is not just a temporary thing. It is like a ticking time bomb, where Sasha's every action will be able to create an unpredictable change, and her every decision will affect the future of her loved ones. Sasha has to face the fact that she is no longer fighting just for herself but also for the people she loves, and this makes her calculations heavier than ever. These changes are not only an explosion of power, but also an explosion of a truth that has been hidden for too long. Sasha realizes that there is no turning back. She must face the truth not only about the people around her but also about herself, about the mistakes and choices that have led her to her current situation. She understands that to overcome all these challenges, she must change the way she views life, about relationships, and most importantly, about what she truly wants to protect. The explosion that Sasha is experiencing is proof that everything in life can change in a moment, and it will never be the same again.